Hi there, my name is Alexander Shelley. I'm the music director of Canada's National Arts Centre Orchestra and the principal associate conductor of London's Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. It's great to welcome you here for these videos where I'm going to be talking a little bit about the basics of conducting technique, how to use the right hand, how to use the left hand, how to prepare scores, and how to rehearse, how to work with orchestras, professional, amateur, youth orchestras, just a few tips on how to think about approaching your time in front of an orchestra. As a basic rule, conducting is about body language. It's about indicating to a group of musicians as quickly and as succinctly as possible how to perform certain aspects of the music. Now, as an exercise for you, you could imagine having on a piece of paper the word yes, just the word yes, no indications of how it's to be spoken, whether it's shouted, whether it's spoken softly, whether it's a question, whether it's a statement. And our role as a conductor is to help make the decision for the performer as to how to perform that. Now, I will give you an example of two ways to say the word yes, and you can see if you'd be able to follow it. Here's the first. And here's the second. Now, I'm guessing you probably said the first one softly and carefully, and you said the second one as a strong, dominant gesture. Well, in that we have the basics of all conducting. It's simple body language. And it's important to remember that as we go through the videos. We'll talk about fundamental aspects of technique, but ultimately it comes down to your own sense of how to communicate with other people, and that's at the core of everything we're going to be talking about. The history of conducting is fairly simple and fairly uncomplicated. For many hundreds of years, people performed together in ensembles and in groups without a conductor. They listened to one another, they watched one another and communicated, and normally a member of the group or several members of the group would play a role leading the others. They would give tempo, they'd indicate dynamic, and you'd discuss with one another how you wanted to make the music. Into the middle of the 18th century, roughly the middle of the 18th century, music became a little bit more complicated. Ensembles grew bigger and bigger. It wasn't as simple as that, but very roughly that's how it happened. And bit by bit, it became obvious that somebody needed to go from outside of the ranks of the orchestra, stand up the front and help with a few elements. First and foremost, time. And the first conductors used a staff or a stick like Gandalf. And they really were bigger, not like the modern batons. And in fact, one of the very first famous conductors was Jean-Baptiste Lully, and he managed to stab himself in the foot with one of these staff and became gangrenous and he died. So that's one of the reasons why the modern baton is a little bit easier and more sensible to use. As we went through the centuries then following that, you had some of the first famous conductors. So Mendelssohn, Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, the great composer, was also one of the first recognized conductors as someone who was very skillful in helping and leading an ensemble. Then Hector Berlioz and Richard Wagner, the two great composers, they were also conductors. They wrote treatises on how to conduct and the role of a conductor. And as we move into the 20th and the 21st century, the idea of this maestro develops, the maestro myth, if you will, and everything that goes with it. The contemporary role of a conductor is, of course, quite complex. If you're a professional conductor or a music director, you have to think about many, many aspects outside of simply rehearsing and working with an orchestra. You need to think about which artists to engage, what repertoire to perform, what repertoire to commission, how to communicate with your audience, both local, regional and national, how to be an advocate for the music that you love and care for so deeply. As an amateur conductor or a conductor of youth orchestras, you also have your plate very full outside of the rehearsal. There's organizing, there's players, getting the music stands, making sure you have the rights, organizing an audience, make sure that people will come along. There are aspects of this that I'll try and touch on towards the later videos in what we're about to film for you, so we can talk a little bit about how to prepare your life outside of the concert hall as a conductor. As we go into our next videos, I would submit one idea to you, the idea at the core of everything that we need to do as conductors, which is respect. Remember that whether it's a professional orchestra or a youth orchestra or an amateur orchestra, the musicians in front of you have worked very hard to prepare and to be where they are. With a professional orchestra, every individual in the orchestra has many, many thousands of hours of practice behind them, and they're masters at what they do. They expect from you preparation, respect, that you're polite, that you're clear, and that you're efficient with their time, that you help them make the most of the music. That's just as a background to everything we're going to talk about in the next few videos. I look forward to welcome you to the next video, where we'll talk about the right hand and the foundations of stick technique and beating clearly. Do join me there, please. You can subscribe to the NAC channel below. You can subscribe to my channel, Alexander Shelley, as well on YouTube. And there's a lot of videos on both of those channels about music, interviews with the musicians as well, and lots of exciting content. So please go ahead and do that, and I'll see you in our next video.